So it seems that Congress is finally going to recognize the little green men in the flying saucers. I've been watching all that stuff with the Baron, and I just think it's a bunch of hooey. I think it's a bunch of baloney. And I tell you what, these things have been happening since Jesus left Chicago, folks. There's old Renaissance paintings of flying saucers in the sky. People pointing to them and saying, look, ooh, and ah. And they're trying to act like it's a new phenomenon. This is another thing I don't understand. See, there's a lot of farms in Kentucky. I had this old boy who lived about 3 miles east of me. He had a farm. His cows would turn up the eyeballs missing, and guts and all that kind of stuff about once a year. And I said, well, fella, what do you think is doing this? And he said, I know what's doing it. It's the little green men in the flying saucers. That was in 1921. Folks, don't believe nothing they're telling you. They're getting ready to set y'all up for disaster. Well, why do you say y'all, Colonel? You're part of the American people. I may be. But I got, since God gave a mule to see what's going on, don't you understand when you start looking at that stuff and you say, oh, I got the heebie-jeebies and it's ookie spooky because there's an alien off. I'm going to go and jump off a bridge or empty out my bank account and all that type of stuff. How easy would it be for them to just roll out some sort of agenda, keep you in your house, and you'll be able to stay there? You got to use your hair for more than a half rack, folks.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the BDRP Late Show. I'm your host, D-Doss. And for all who were ranting ready to go for the Bible study, I do apologize. We're going to be doing that a little bit different, and I'll tell you about that a little bit later on in the show. But welcome back. So I've had some people contact me and point out some interviews that have happened in the wake of this supposed alien mumbo jumbo in Miami. And there's interviews out with people who are actually there. They were there on the on site at the mall when all this went down. And guess what they're saying? That there was someone or some group of kids who brought a big box into the mall, and there was fireworks going off in it. And they took off running because of, fireworks going all over the place like Roman candles. I don't know if you ever had a Roman candle fight like us dumb hillbillies down here, but it's kind of hot, those fireworks, when they go down your shirt and whatnot. I have a permanent scar that I'll show you if you ever come down to Oklahoma. So I had to go to the woods with old Dion, and it sucked, and it burned really bad. So for those kids out there listening, which according to the analytics are none, you don't want to do that. It's not as fun as it looks. That's a lie. It's more fun than what it looks. And a little bit of danger is what makes it fun. But I find it mighty strange that it's exactly what it looks like. It's exactly what we were saying. Folks, it was one of two things I told you. Number one, they're using this little incident to pull a flim-flam on you to get you believing it's one thing and it's really another. And it's an opportunity that they've seized upon for a psyop. Or they start, I don't believe in happenstance, chance, or luck, but somehow those kids started firing fireworks at one another right around the same time they decided to use that mall for a psyop. I do not believe that it's aliens. I just refuse to believe that, and I've seen no real ecumenical evidence to that fact. I know that there's been pictures that have shown up that show what seemed to be big shadows and blue beings walking around. But the one picture that I saw that was the most convincing had a police officer in the same shot just standing around like it was a Wednesday. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but if I see some blue glowing black-eyed creature at a mall, if I'm a cop, I've just been called there saying that, let's go with the original narrative, that there were police officers called to a scene because some kids were going buck wild. They were going completely bananas and shooting off fireworks like heathens. Let's say that police response, though in this town, I don't see something like that happening, but this town isn't Miami. Let's say that was an appropriate response for what the call was. 70 some odd cop cars or something like that, right? Let's say that was an appropriate response. Seems a little bit excessive to me, but what do I know? You still have to explain the fact that this was only reported on a week after the event itself. A week. And it wasn't a week after the event, it was a week after this woman on TikTok, who you can look in her eyes and tell maybe she's not playing with the full deck, but she's smart enough to have said, hey, this is for entertainment purposes only. She was at least, genuine in that fact. It only blew up after her post about it blew up. And she's the one that came out with that theory. I've looked at it as deep as I could. I can't find anybody else who was saying that it was some sort of an alien invasion before that. And I found that mighty, mighty strange and mighty sad that the evening news is now using what's popular on TikTok, what's going viral on TikTok, to present to us, the American people, as being newsworthy. Well, D, they said that they didn't believe it was aliens either. I don't care what they said. They shouldn't have been reporting on it in the first place. Why is that news? I mean, does that make sense to anybody but me? There wasn't nothing else going on in the United States of America at that point in time that may have been pertinent to the American people. I think there was. I think there's several things going on that's pertinent to the American people. Like, let's say, for instance, there was a very popular presidential candidate who was taken off of what they call a battle state, which I don't believe it's a battle state, but whatever. He was taken off the ballot in a battle state. And the early votes, what it looks like, their little predictions are that he's already won the state with write-in votes. So you have this man who's taken off the ballot. They're trying to hurt his chances to become the president, right? They get him taken off the ballot in a state that they call a battleground state. And he still has that state sewn up. Oh, yeah, and by the way, there's this little thing that came out, the list of people who've engaged in probably murder on top of very, very ugly things done to children. A list of these people who are your elected officials. Not just, folks, this is what I want you to listen to the most. This is what they're not telling you. This is what you probably won't hear on YouTube or anywhere else. It's not just Tom Hanks and actors and actresses and politicians. It's the head of universities. It's tenured professors that are the head of the science department at prestigious universities. It's even college educators. The ones that are notch above teachers, they're still professors, but they work at Oklahoma City Community College. There is a nefarious plot going on in this land, and that list is just the beginning of it. The devil has his tentacles so far ingrained in our culture and in our government. Every aspect of it, folks. Every mad jack aspect of it. DHS, CPS, all of it. The IRS, the United States Postal Service. There's no doubt in my mind that somebody who sits in a position of power in all parts of government have been compromised on that island. Well, why did they compromise them, D? Why not? And I don't believe it's you know what I believe. I've told you straight out. I believe it was British intelligence, our greatest ally. Because when you have a big brother, when you got like 6 or 7 brothers and you're the second oldest, I mean, yeah, I'm gonna make sure that I take note that the big brother snuck some girls in the window when the parents were gone. Yeah, I'm gonna get some dirt on them. Why not? Wouldn't you? That, and it's all a part of their occult ritualistic magic. They have to get down with the magic for it to work. Just like you have to acquiesce to the fact that Oh, well, there's aliens in a mall in Miami. You're talking about it. You're trying to go over the theories of why it's possible. I mean, yeah, you're leaning into their magic that they're performing on you. Because it can't work without your consent, you see. Now, if I was wrong, you wouldn't be seeing anything about that alien stuff down there in Miami. It wouldn't be on the evening news. Hell, it wouldn't even be on TikTok or YouTube. And if it was, it wouldn't be up there for that long. I'll never forget on the old channel. This is before they started pushing these agendas through. The old BDRP. The original Cryptid Late Show. It was myself and about 3 or 4 other guys on a panel. And we were talking about Nazi Germany and the real society, flying saucers, and aliens not being extraterrestrial, rather, but being interdimensional. And how these interdimensional spirit-type beings are building these organic suits that they make from the materials that they get from these cattle mutilations, which have been going on since the early 1900s and probably before that. And it's actually written. You can go look back in old local newspapers and see cattle mutilations and the big mystery of it. Some of them were blamed on crazy people in the town, just so I think, they could have it sewn up nice and neat. But I believe that they were building these bioorganic suits out of these materials that they were taking from these cattle so they can pull the same flim-flam that they're pulling on you now. The simple fact that it's still prevalent means that it's not over. It's starting to stick. You notice how many agendas that have been pushed through here lately. For instance, less than 1% of the population of the United States. I won't say who they are. I'll let you, use your imagination, or better than that, do some research and you'll see who I'm talking about. This group of people who are less than 1% of the population of this nation have been pushed in front of you to where you're forced to accept who they are, even though your religious beliefs or moral beliefs may not agree with it. Now, me being a born-again believer in the Lord Jesus Christ with an indwelling of the Holy Spirit, I have a sincere love, that love that comes from Jesus Christ, who died on the cross for our sins. I have that love for everybody, even my enemies, believe it or not. But we are held to a standard. They want that standard moved to where they want it to be so we can lean that much further into the magic that they're doing on us. There's a reason why in the laws of Moses, he said we should suffer not a witch to live. They're dangerous. And they have a better understanding of the spirit world than a lot of Christians. And they are very religious, folks. Don't get it wrong. They're very religious. They don't have a problem with the religious trappings that they have to go through. They enjoy it. You remember when you were a little kid, you used to go to Bible study, you'd see your friends there and all that kind of stuff. And it was fun. Then you got a little bit older and it was boring because you had to go in there with the adults and listen to the preacher drone on about stuff you didn't understand or didn't want to hear. It's the same thing, except every day is they're in that Bible study class with their friends. You understand? They don't have a problem with it. It's only us who can't, bend to that rod of correction or sit and study and show ourselves approved unto God. We're the ones that have a problem with that, not them. They serve a God too. Except their God's with a little g, ours with a big G. We should be doing better than what we're doing. But that's neither here nor there. Folks, what you give your attention to is a form of worship. What you give your attention to is energy. That energy can be circumnavigated to something else. Energy does not dissipate. I'm pretty sure Einstein showed that pretty clearly. So that energy from that attention that you give is going somewhere. And the fact that you're still seeing that, there's still videos being made about it, it's hit the algorithm and staying strong in it, means that good old flim-flam they pulled is still trucking on along. I mean, I have no interest in it. I have a peace with what's going on. It was exactly what was originally said. These kids, these badass, unattended kids, went in this mall with some fireworks to the point where there's been 2 interviews that I know of where the people that were at the mall said the exact same thing. And that's out there for public consumption. If you go and look, just minimal detective work, go and look up the date of this woman on TikTok. She's popular as gangbusters now. You'll know who she is, blonde hair lady. Go and look up when her video went viral, and then look up when all this Miami alien stuff started taking off, and you can, draw your own conclusions. There's a clear delineable line between the two. But what are you going to do? We're going to have our fun, right? We're going to go get into these topics and look at this stuff that nobody believes in, but we know is real. And that's our own special club, isn't it? It better not be. I really hope you're spending more time in your Bible and with your kids and with your husbands and wives, and more importantly than that, with the Lord, than you are looking into this hidden darkness. Because once you start peering into the darkness starts peering back at you. Notice there's been peace that's not there that it was before. I mean, are things starting to move around your house? You're starting to hear weird noises? Is there contention with people that you didn't have contention with before? Are you weary, tired all the time? Are your shoulders heavy? It feels like you're being drugged down all the time, and you can't ever be happy with anything. Well, folks, you may be under witchcraft. And guess who did it? You. I'm saying this so confidently because I did it to myself. I've been there before. I wouldn't tell y'all nothing that I haven't dealt with. Let me tell you, go as far as tell you this. I've been in relationships with women who had questionable intentions. So much so that I asked them, were they a witch? And they never said no. They didn't say yes, but they didn't say no either. And my dumb country ass is, oh, well, you know, she didn't say she was a witch. She didn't necessarily say she wasn't, but I'll just take that as a, no, folks. We can't be playing with this stuff. We're getting too close to the end. The end of the age. I can't wait, honestly. I've about had my fill of all this madness. But more is coming. Make no mistake. Because we've given our attention and our energy to this madness so much. First, it was Peru. That was supposed to be, you know, the catalyst. That was supposed to be the jumping off point. That wasn't good enough. Told you it was coming to America. I wouldn't have guessed Miami, but why not Miami? Especially when there's some stupid kids going in firing fireworks and whatnot, and a lady on TikTok who comes up with some cockamamie theory. That woman was probably drinking cognac and smoking cigars and half drunk, and then she seen that and she was like, man, wouldn't it be crazy if that was aliens, the reason all these cops showing up? And she convinced herself that it was. And from that, we've all been convinced, haven't we? Folks, if aliens were at the mall in Miami, now stop and think about it. Every single mad jack one of us has either anywhere from decent to a Hollywood style camera right in our pocket. Every last one of us. Even ones who can't afford it through government subsidy programs can get one. So there's no way that anybody's going to convince me that aliens were there unless I see the hundreds upon hundreds of videos that would have been shot. Even if they would have released a hallucinogen. Even if they thought they were lost in the sauce and seeing whatever. Let me tell you something. I've had friends who were just frying on mushrooms, who took a video of what they thought was some sort of a will-o-wisp or something like that, or a fairy going through this meadow that they were sitting in while they were tripping balls. Yeah, they're going through this meadow. This will-o-wisp it was a, what do you call those things that you blow? The little flowers. You know what I mean? Dandelions or whatever. You blow them and then the seeds go and they make more of their own kind. It was one of those. I see what they in there inside of their own mind why they thought that. The way the light was and the way it was reflecting inside of the camera and whatnot. Sure. But they were lost in the sauce. They were out of there. Sad thing is we're not on any hallucinogen. We should know better. I think that our want and our need to clamber on to something that's secret. Something that we're not supposed to know. And that's a form of pride. That's a form of pride. We have this knowledge that no one else knows. You see, and that makes us better than people, doesn't it? You got to be careful with that too. If I could turn back time, there's no doubt in my mind that the Lord opened up this field for me, that he took fear from me so I can go amongst those monsters and film it. But I'll tell you what, I think it's moved past that point now. Even in the Bigfoot community where I started, you see a lot of people who weren't speaking as they speak now, saying how these things are now some sort of an extraterrestrial life, you see. They're not from here. They're from out there. It's the wild blue yonder somewhere. And they come here for whatever. I don't know the reason. I've never really heard anybody give a reason now that I say that. Why would aliens come here and be wandering around in the rural areas and in the woods by rivers? That doesn't make much sense. It doesn't seem like if something's coming from out there, they're more advanced species of life than we are. They're getting through all that space debris, traveling at the speed of light without their craft being ripped to shreds because, I mean, you got to take that into account. There's a bunch of space debris. And if you're traveling at the speed of light and you're going through something that's solid, I mean, that's going to rip you to atoms. How's that? How are they getting here without that taking place? So they got to be some crazy advanced civilization that's coming here, right? Because they've calculated all this and somehow they can still make that voyage. Why are they coming here and wandering around in the woods and boo-booing just wherever they walk and stealing cattle and doing the same experiments on them for the past 200 years? They're advanced, but they're also a big momo. They're a big dummy. That doesn't make any sense. And I mean, like, it's as simple as that. If you start asking yourself these really simple Simon questions that are pertinent, like, it stops making as much sense as it does when you don't ask questions. Because if you listen to somebody who's a very good speaker and they say, oh, well, yes, they're coming from Zeta Reticuli, you see, and they want to mine and harvest gold because their atmosphere uses gold as a primary blah, blah, blah. And if they have this gold, they can patch up their atmosphere because their atmosphere was damaged according to the lost Rosy Cross Emerald Scrolls and blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, yeah, that makes sense because he said it in a sentence that didn't seem like a run-on sentence. And it's a bunch of nonsense. It's bullcrap. Yes, and thank you, nephew, and the Van Allen's radiation belt. Allegedly, we can't make it through the Van Allen's radiation belt, and I've not seen anybody in science explain how we can, though we've went to the moon. And for the folks that talk about the firmament and flat Earth, I think that may be our firmament. Who knows? It keeps us trapped in here, doesn't it? But that's nevertheless, folks, like I say, I don't know what else to tell you at this point, except like just get ready for the next round because I think it's going to be happening sooner than later. They have to capitalize on the fact that they've launched all these initiatives to, how would you put it? Destroy our minds to the point where we can only accept a minute worth of information at a time before we lose interest. That's why you fall asleep with your phone. You know, you're on your back, you fall asleep, you're just flipping through, scrolling through. As you're falling asleep, you're scrolling through shorts or scrolling through TikTok. And you wake up and actually go to bed like a proper, decent human being when the phone falls and hits you in the face. That's a weapon that's been used against you, you see. That's the reason why even in your unconscious mind, you're still scrolling. It's giving you a high, and you're chasing that high. Then because you're chasing that high, you're kind of lost in the sauce. You don't really understand that your brain's wiring is being rewired in that moment, permanently. So what do you do for that? I've talked to people and I've shown them the actual science. And where I know I'm going to get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the State Department under the Trump administration brought out the evidence to show that TikTok is an absolute weapon that's being used against us. Where it was developed at in China, if you look at their app, if you look at their TikTok, it's not like ours. But, like the title of the show says, what if? And this is a big what if. I used to read what if comic books. I think there's a TV show based on the what if comic books, if I'm not mistaken. But what if comic books were awesome. It's like, what if Wolverine didn't join the X-Men, but joined the Avengers instead? And go. So those comics were always awesome. They would always ask questions that you never really asked before, but you know, what if? So what if there were really other life forms on other planets? Highly civilized, highly advanced civilizations, brother, that for whatever reason want to come here. Let's not ask why they would want to come here because it becomes more unrealistic the more you ask that question. But let's just say, what if? More so than Bigfoot, because Bigfoot seems to fit the symmetry of the environments that they're in. It's almost like they used the woods that they live in as technology itself. They use them in ways that we can't. I mean, folks, I've said it probably a dozen times before. It's worth saying again. I've been in the woods after a good heavy rain. And the buildup of water on the leaves of the trees as it hits the ground, they use that to mask them running from tree to tree. That's something that's been out there for a very long time, and that's something that's used to every single minute inch of the forest, and they know what to do with it. They're using it as technology against us. So let's say that's the natural creature. Dogman doesn't really fit, though, does it? An upright walking canine being, a bigger and more efficient predator than the Sasquatch is. Though I've always said Sasquatch is way more dangerous than the Dogman. I think Sasquatch is way more dangerous than a werewolf, for the simple fact that it has our type of understanding. We're a very, very cunning predator. We don't think like a wolf. We don't think like a cheetah or a fox. We think like man. And to a certain extent, so does Bigfoot. But when you get these Dogman creatures, they think like a wolf. They stalk like wolves. And they're scariest. They just look scary. They're monsters. It seems like they're alien to the part that they inundate themselves in these areas with the Bigfoot, though it doesn't seem like it would be very pertinent for them to be there. If they're a top tier predator as big as they are, and they're a canid, wouldn't you think they would want to be somewhere far away from another top tier predator that would challenge them for the food sources? Why would they be as elusive as they are? Let's see who's there. Claire Ellis, Lucas Williams, Wayne Kautzer. Haven't seen you before. Welcome to the Bigfoot Dogman Research Project. Y'all didn't know that's what it was originally called, huh? This is an old hat for me. This is my bread and butter, where I came from. Claire Ellis again, World Weather Authority, folks. That's World Weather Authority. My adopted nephew. If you go outside, see, if I would have known to watch World Weather Authority, I would have known that Oklahoma was going to get a winter storm. Though we didn't get any snow, it's been cold as all get out. I wouldn't have walked outside without my hoodie and a jacket on top of it, instead of just walking outside with my hoodie. I had to turn back around. That's because I didn't watch World Weather Authority, where all your weather needs are met by human beings, not some sort of automaton that they put with crazy white teeth, laughing at jokes that only they understand. Deimos Mars, G Reaper, Levi H., Tom Jakowski, another fellow brother in the faith, and a preacher of the Word of God. A&B Automotive Detail, Gary Bonnell, Swamp Life Mysteries and Paranormal, and the BDRP Supernatural. Got snow in the UK. Well, I'll be doggone. Yeah, I think everybody's getting a little bit of that snow. What's up, Zephaniah? So, folks, and I do believe that these Dogman creatures, maybe not I don't know if there is a natural Dogman. Let's be real. We know very, very little about Dogman. It could all be some sort of a shared mass delusion, for all we know, or something they're projecting on us. Where are most dumbs that are listed, which none of them are really, but there are some that you can find out there that they talk about. Where are these dumbs located? Does anybody know? Does anybody know where one dumb in the United States is located? The ones that I can find are very, very close, if not in the same areas where people are seeing these cryptids. Isn't that funny? Why would they choose to put their deep underground military bases where they do all sorts of things? Experimentation on animals. China, and I think this has been 2 years, maybe even 3 now, have said that they successfully mixed the DNA of a monkey and a human being. And it wasn't they were doing this in a petri dish, folks. They did it, and they brought this being to life in the belly of a I forget what kind of monkey. I want to say a howler monkey, but I know that's not whatever kind of monkey that was on Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. They brought this abomination to being, and it lived. And from what I mean, I don't know. I've never seen them seen anything where they destroyed this thing, because it's happened here in the States as well, and it's been reported on, but they destroy it. right after it comes, after the mother gives birth, they destroy they see that, okay, well, it worked, and then they destroy it. It was several years now, but years ago, it was Vault of Nightmares. He turned me on to this. I think it was Vault of Nightmares. It may have been Swamp Dweller. I don't know, but somebody turned me on to this article from jolly old England, where there was a law passed to protect chimeras. To protect chimeras, folks. If you remember back in your Greek mythology, what the chimera was, I believe it had the head of a lion and the body of some sort of like a scorpion or something like that, and the tail of a scorpion. Let's look that up, because I mean, it was a wicked looking creature. I'd see it from a distance and then go to another city. It was an ugly mamma jamma. But we've taken that definition and applied it to anything. Let's see. A chimera is an organism, organ, or part consisting of two or more tissues of different genetic composition, produced as a result of organ transplant, grafting, or genetic engineering. A substance, such as an antibody, created from the proteins or genes of two different species. An individual who has received a transplant. Now see, this is the medical definition for it. Let's look at the etymology of that word. According to Greek mythology, the chimera was a monstrous fire-breathing hybrid creature from Lycia in Asia Minor, composed of different animal parts. It usually was depicted as a lion with the head of a goat protruding from its back and a tail that might end with a snake's head. It was the offspring of Typhon and Echidna, and a sibling to monsters like Cerberus and the Lamæan Hydra. Now, these were children, I believe, of the Titans. The Titans being angels, and Christian accounts of it. And that's another thing, folks. There's an account of Russians who were working on the space station that saw angels that flew up to the window, and one report said that they were like 300 feet tall. The Bible indicates that these angels have the ability, at least some have the ability, to change their appearance, change what they look like. There's no doubt in my mind they were that big, but there's also no doubt in my mind that they could be the same size as us and look like us if they wanted to. They have powers far above and beyond that we can comprehend. The only evidence we have outside of the Bible is deuterocanonical books, the Apocrypha, and then it starts getting into Greek mythology and things of this nature. Mythology and folklore being another word for not readily accepted history. So Homer describes the chimera in the Iliad, saying that she was of divine stock, not of men, in the forepart of a lion, in the hinder of a serpent, and in the midst of a goat, breathing forth in terrible wise that might of blazing fire. Hesiod and Apollodorus gave similar descriptions. A three-headed creature with a lion in front, a fire-breathing goat in the middle, and a serpent in the rear. So we see from the scientific aspects of the word that it's taking any two tissues or any two different things and combining them into one for some sort of purpose. Now, I'm not saying that there hasn't been good that's come from these people genetically modifying, let's say, I think they've used pig hearts for pig transplants. And that's a good thing. It's extending life. That's a great thing. There's nothing wrong with that. That's medicine. But there's always been a fine line between medicine and witchcraft, really. There's a word that it's combining two different elements to make another element that's richer in value than the first two. Does anybody remember that word? I believe that they were trying to take two metals, like, let's say, iron and copper, and mix them together in some way using chemicals and different methods to produce gold. That word was called alchemy, if anybody remembers. That's what they did. And according to some sources, Isaac Newton died drinking mercury because that's exactly what he was set out to do from the get-go, from Jump Street. It was combine different elements to try to create and produce gold. Because think about it. If you could take lesser valued metals and combine them together in some way using a chemical process or whatever and create gold, you have literally created the golden goose. You've created something that produces physical wealth. So who wouldn't get behind that? Anybody who's read the Bible wouldn't get behind that. Damn all that stuff. I mean, that's alchemy. That's witchcraft. And all witchcraft, you have to pay a price. The person who's doing it has to pay some sort of price. No matter how much the wealth and the riches are, they're sacrificing something. That's why if I stood back, if I was just the blank slate human, and I was observing all these different religions and religious practices and the different faiths and the deities that people worship, I'd have to take 2 or 3 looks at Christianity, because it's the only religion that I could think of where the sacrifice has already been made for us. One of the most searched things is real human chimera pictures. Yeah. That can't be real. Get out of there. That's nonsense. But it may not be. Folks, there's some weird... I'll let y'all do that on your own, Tom. Like, look up real human chimera pictures. It's cuckoo cuckoo. But China's been at the forefront of this since the early 90s. But when we go back to World War II, Nazi Germany, right? There was a cat named Joseph Mengele. Now, Joseph Mengele was a very, very, very special piece of junk. This guy would take twins of the Jewish kids that were twins, and it'd separate them sometimes in different parts of the building, sometimes in different buildings themselves, and do just gruesome and atrocious things to them, cutting off body parts and limbs and fingers. And he would have somebody in real time in this other building observing the other twin to see the most subtle of reactions. And he'd write all this down in his journal. He was doing all this to lead to his ultimate experiment he called twinning. Like a twin that you got a twin sister or brother? Twinning. Now, according to American writers and journalists, Joseph Mengele was successful in his process he called twinning or cloning. There's a village down in Brazil that before World War II, a very famous German architect went down and was taking measurements, and he took an engineer with him, and they're buying up land, and they see him measuring out places for a house, to build houses. Now, this isn't anything out of the way. You know, I think the land down there was a whole lot cheaper than it was anywhere else. So this wasn't anything to kind of, look at as being strange. Until post-World War II and right before the fall of Berlin, reports all over the place from South Americans that all sorts of submarines were emerging in these small towns in the middle of the night, and great number of men were getting off of them, out of these submarines and just disappearing into the night. Well, in the FBI Black Vault, something that anybody can access, there is a declassified document stating that Adolf Hitler not only survived the bunker, he was never there to begin with, and that he lived out the rest of his life under strict observation in South America. I believe Joseph Mengele was cut a deal like this as well. Operation Paperclip, where us and Russia got to cherry pick the cream of the crop. Even to this day, folks, Germans are very, very smart people. I think they have the most physicists and astrophysicists in university than any other country in the world. Very smart people, very dedicated people. They dedicate themselves to education, furthering their knowledge. There is a village, and I think it's in Peru. It may be Brazil, but I'm pretty sure it's Peru, that has more twins birthed than any place on planet Earth. I'll find out for you. I don't want it to all be rhetoric and something that old Dion's telling you. But in this city, there's more twins than anywhere else in the world. I believe Joseph Mengele escaped his justice I believed he came up to America. You see these YouTube videos where they show these pictures from the Civil War and afterwards. The one was Jay-Z, is very convincing. I mean, there's certain things that you look for, even in identical twins, that aren't exactly, I mean, they may be within fraction of an inch of being, you know, identical, but it makes them different from one another. Then you see these pictures of these actors and actresses and military folks, like Jeffrey Epstein. Saw one with him, and somebody pointed out a lot of the features on the $20 bill of Andrew Jackson. You put their faces right next to each other, or cut the screen in half and cut their pictures in half, put them up to one another. I mean, the symmetry of it'll shock you. It'll make you stop. And I think about those type of things. There's no doubt in my mind that Joseph Mengele did exactly what those journalists reported. Now, did they make this a worldwide known thing? I doubt it very seriously. Why would they? Just like the CERN Large Hadron Collider in the Brill Society. Showed you a picture of that esoteric artwork that was hanging on. She was the head of the Brill Society. I forget her name. Something Osric. She's a pretty lady, long hair. But it was hanging on her wall, and it looked like the Ephesus of the large tube where they collide the particles at CERN. The largest machine on planet Earth, the largest machine ever thought of being built. In every single country on planet Earth, save for us, we're only there as an observer, but every advanced country on planet Earth contributed monetarily to the building and the maintenance of this machine, and they still do so in Europe without European citizens' consent, mind you. And I know it's only the cost of like a cup of coffee a day, but still, that's a cup of coffee coming out of their pocket that they didn't consent to giving for this machine that they may not agree with. I doubt a lot of Europeans would agree with colliding particles off of one another at the speed of light if they knew that had the chance to open a black hole right here on planet Earth. And they know that's they know that could be a side effect from their experimentation. They do it anyways. Folks, I think that's more than just looking for how life started, because they've got their answer to that. They collided the part. Initially, this was done to see what took place in a controlled setting during the Big Bang. You see, they're colliding these particles off of one another, even though the Big Bang in and of itself couldn't exist if they subscribe to any of Einstein's theories. Something has to be in perpetual motion to put something else into motion. The energy can't just appear. Something has to set something else in place. There has to be a wick. So somebody has to strike that lighter to light that firecracker, right? So they know what's going on. They feed us what they think we'll swallow, even if it's hard to chew. It's craziness. What's even more crazy than that, though, is there's been no protest to any of the stuff they're doing. Not the cloning programs. There's a cloning facility right here in the United States. And they're not trying to hide it. They just don't advertise it. And the people that know about it, they don't need to advertise it too. But Joseph Mengele, Werner von Braun, many of you may know that name. He came over during all that. Werner von Braun helped start what we know today to be NASA. And also, coincidentally enough, Space Mountain in Disneyland. So I'm back over here with you guys now. Photos of King's funeral show Hitler, no mustache. Of King's funeral? Oh, the King. I don't. My mind went to Martin Luther King for some reason. I was like, why would Hitler be at Martin Luther King's funeral? Duh, DDoS. The king who was supporting him. The king that had to advocate the throne because of his support for the Nazis. They'll try to pass it off that he married that American actress, but no. And that was the Queen's uncle and the current sitting king's great uncle, I believe. And that's when they put in who they call the stuttering king. They made that movie about him, The King's Speech. Because, I mean, he may have been a stammering, stuttering prince, but at least he didn't support the Nazis. That was a little bit more than the royal family would have. Levi H. Just wait for any power outages in the Midwest this week with negative 30-degree weather. Power company already sent out warnings to reduce usage. Well, I mean, that just exposes how vulnerable our infrastructure is. I don't think that's necessarily the government doing anything. That's really showing, that stuff is being held together with duct tape and clothes hangers. Because they're too busy putting money towards that which we haven't approved, that we don't want. And like I told you, folks, it's the writing's on the wall. They have been trying to turn us against each other since probably the country's inception, right? They don't want anybody being on the same page. They want to divide us like the Democrats and Republicans are divided. Divided right down the middle. And they have issues like abortion. That you're going to take a hard stance on that one way or another. The fence straddlers, I mean, they're on the other side of the fence, whether they know it or not. That's what they want with us. They want us to take hard stances against one another. Because if we were like Paraguay, where everybody, or Peru, where everybody, I mean, there's different melatonin levels in people's skin in Peru. There's folks as dark and as chocolatey as me, and people as light as nephew from World Weather Authority. But they look at each other as Peruvians. Same with Brazil. They're Brazilians. We're the only country that's divided by silly things like race, to the point where we have divided our neighborhoods and our cities. So since that division's taken place, they can run their own separate ops on us. Look at it this way. A Caucasian male is the majority in this country. They hold the majority, right? There's more Caucasian males than any other race. And a lot of races that are here, both male and female. But somehow it's become okay to make fun of them in TV shows and in movies, make silly jokes like a movie came out called Django Unchained that Quentin Tarantino did a handful of years ago. He made a joke at the Oscars. This is supposed to be the most prestigious place there is, right? He made a joke about the Oscars, at the Oscars rather, that he loved the movie because, quote, they got to kill all the white guys, end quote of Jamie Foxx. And did that get any kind of hisses or boos from the crowd? No, everybody giggled and clapped and all that. Everybody. You see what they're doing? When you start trying to segregate and denigrate the majority in your country, how's that not going to make them mad? They're running ops on us all the time, folks. All the time. They don't stop. There's nobody at the top that says, man, this isn't right. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't be ingraining all this hidden stuff into people's mind to be injected into their subconscious mind so they can turn on each other. Nobody's up there. Nobody at the tippy top saying nothing close to that. Yeah, well, there you go, Levi H. Will Smith slapped the fire out of another brother. There you have it. What is that presenting to the American people? That this brother was going to resort to violence instead of using reason or patience or having grace or mercy or understanding. He laughed at the joke, but then he got up. And that's because they want, in the eyes of Americans at least, they want the black woman to be above the black man. Do you see the reoccurring theme here? Take away color. What's that? What's at the base of it? Man. The devil wants to remove the image of God and the authority, spiritual authority that's given by God. They want to remove that from man because that's what their boss wants. That's what the devil wants. He wants man alone in his feelings instead of stoic, looking at his neighbor as being his enemy instead of loving his neighbor as he loves himself, and seeing all these agendas that are rolling out to not have that restored mind of Christ, to not stop and have any kind of due diligence of thinking and studying and looking into what's actually taking place. If they destroy man, they destroy the family, don't they? Women are rewarded for not wanting a family. all the Cardi B's and all the rest that these little girls look up to. I don't even know if anybody looks up to Cardi B, or I just threw a name out there. I don't know any of these women because I don't pay attention to them. But I know the rhetoric when I hear it. They put all these women out in front of these young girls, telling them how they can be independent women. Now these little girls, they want to go to college, which they're going to be paying for the rest of their life, and they want to be self-sufficient. Yet what God ingrained in them is having a family and having a protector and a husband. All that's going to be pushed away, and by the time they realize it, because genetically it's in them to have a family, it's going to be too late. And then that's not including the chemicals that they put in the food to push us back towards their own nefarious ends. More of these steroids and milk and meat. I mean, that's a deep rabbit. I don't want to go into all that, but you know exactly what I'm talking about, folks, and you know that I'm not wrong. They've been doing this since Jesus left Chicago, and they're going to continue to because we allow it. Dogman from outer space. All they have to do is, I mean, if they really want people to believe in these cryptids or to stay out of the woods, all they have to do is initiate a 3-week-long agenda. They're doing pretty good so far. And that's the thing about it. They don't want people to think that there's aliens. So what do? What do they present to the American people? They send your the automaton meteorologist and news anchor on there to laugh at the people who believe in it. And the people who would believe in it, they see that and say, oh, well, they must be covering it up because they're talking about it on television. They don't want us to believe in it, so that means it's real. It's a double whammy. No, it's not real. They're running an op on you. And if it was real, you wouldn't hear a thing about it. And that woman's video wouldn't have went viral. And as soon as it did, I'd keep an eye on her. I want to give you her name, as a matter of fact. It's on my phone. I want to give you her name, and everybody go and subscribe to her channel because she ain't going to be around that much longer, folks. You got to think they ran this operation based on the video that she put out going viral. So she can't be allowed to stay around because she was talking craziness before this. And she sees how big of a wildfire this has turned into. When they want it to pipe down for them to roll out the next agenda, they don't want somebody looking at the old one. They want them to focus on the new. I mean, she's just a loose end that I don't see them keeping around. But yeah, when you watch this video, it's 8 minutes long of her. I mean, she sells it pretty good. Don't get me wrong. She's a good salesman. And I like to thank everybody who's come to the channel, our watch time and all that kind of stuff, because we got our channel flamed by another channel not too long ago, and it really hurt us as far as like the amount of people coming to the channel and whatnot. But that's going back up, as is the watch time, and that's a beautiful thing. I'm going to segue myself for a second. I just saw something. It's not as important as that woman's channel, but y'all probably are subscribed to her anyways. There was somebody who came to the channel that wrote something very, very interesting to me. And this brings it back to everybody's favorite subject, monsters that aren't supposed to exist. This old boy came to the channel, and I read like the first couple of sentences, and I read through the rest because I was like, this is too good. I have to share this with the audience. And just like when I have a guest, more than likely, I'm going to be hearing the entirety of their encounter or their of the event that happened. I'm going to be hearing that with you. I get the premise, but I don't necessarily get to watch the entire movie. And that's just the way it's always been because, like, I don't know, it seems genuine that way. I don't know. Maybe I should stop that because maybe it'll seem genuine and seem pretty cool at first, but then end up being kind of I'll tell you what, this comment though, I'll read it to you, and then I'll post the link to the video. You can read it for yourself. It was on the video called Mind Speak, so it was from a while ago. He commented a day ago. So this is from subscriber Wild Humans. I heard a voice in my head in 2018 and believe it was a Sasquatch. His name was Kamooh, Kamooh. He introduced himself as an elder Sasquatch. He said, "We need your help. Sasquatch might not survive the Anthropocene extinction. We want you to be an ambassador and share what you know about us. with your people. To be a great man, you must be a good boy first. Keep your thoughts pure and true. Pray, meditate, eat good food, drink good water, wake up early, work your body, wash your clothes by hand. Star people watch you. Stay humble, calm, and focused. Stay kind. Female Sasquatch move territory. Males stay in the same area. We use lithography or lithography. We don't eat humans. We are not Nephilim. Patty is still alive. There are about 40,000 Sasquatch in North America, which kind of coincides with what that Sasquatch organization that's very, very famous, that was started by a man who makes money. That's the figure they put out there. It's strange. No guns, Camus says. No guns. Don't burn the forest. Stop smoking. We love you, and a few other things. He goes on to say that Camus introduced me to another Sasquatch named Rashanti. I was able to ask a few questions. Why did you choose me? Camus answered, people will find your story touching. How do Sasquatch differ from humans? Rashanti answered, I'll let you read that part. Were you people were your people created, or did you evolve? I was shown a vision of the earth from space and a rainbow shining down to earth. It was in color and quite vivid. Space rainbow. Does that mean they were created by ETs? How are you speaking to me right now? Camus answered. Rashanti said, Camus said, Rashanti will teach you how to breathe when you are ready. And I was immediately tapped in the center of my forehead. Then Camus said, focus here. Breath work and meditation are an important aspect of Sasquatch psychic abilities. Wish I could have asked more questions, but that's it. Thanks for reading. Now, folks, again, I skimmed through that the first time. I read that through for the first time right now. What do y'all think? Was that person in contact with a was that person in contact with a Sasquatch? There was some pertinent things, and you see around the first couple of sentences why I didn't go through it all. And anybody else would just write that off as being a bunch of hullabaloo and be done with it. But the spirit of truth moved in such a way with this. Now, when you look at it again, I want to read that to you. If you don't mind, can I read it again and give you like what I think of it, line by line? Does anybody mind? I'll segue on to some real world stuff, and they're going crazy. Our infrastructure cannot take temperatures that low, especially not in the Midwest. Thank you, World Weather Authority. I mean, it's simple. It's very, very simple stuff. What's up, Nathan? Nathan. Huh. I got a brother named Nathan. Brother in the faith. So, this is from the first sentence, folks. I heard a voice in my head in 2018. I was an active field researcher then, going in at least every other week. I've heard of mind speak from these Sasquatch creatures, but somebody who inundated themselves the very first year of his research in an area that was full tilt boogie. I mean, the Bigfoot outlaws call it the second scariest place they've ever been in the United States of America. Brown Springs. Inundating myself in that area to the point where their young would practice hiding on me because they knew I was no threat to them. I never heard a voice of these things inside of my head. And I only heard samurai chatter once, which is strange. I heard a voice in my head in 2018 and believe it was a Sasquatch. And that's it right there. There's no, and this is just me, folks. Maybe I think different. But I would at least try to explain what led me to the belief. Like, I thought it was a Sasquatch because of X, Y, and Z. Because I was in the woods and I saw one and it looked me in the eyes and there was a feeling and blah, blah, blah. There was none of that. That was just I heard a voice in my head and thought it was a Sasquatch. Or were you sitting playing Nintendo 64 Or were you crocheting when this took place? So that was, it made me suspicious, that's all. His name was Camus. He introduced himself as an elder Sasquatch. So, and this is the thing that gets me about people that go on these ghost hunts and that mess with Ouija boards and they hear this mind speak. Why are they just taking the words of these invisible entities? I mean, does that seem kind of wild to you? If I'm hearing a voice with my audible ear, something I can't see, and it's all of a sudden saying, oh, well, we're this and we're that. I'm JFK. I didn't really die. My body was just displaced. What are you talking about? How do I know you're JFK? You sound like him, but I'm JFK. See? Oh, that was more like a 1920s gangster. But anyway, you get my point. He introduced himself as an elder Sasquatch. Well, nice to meet you. I'm an elder Sasquatch. Why can't I see you? Don't worry about that right now. All will be revealed over time. Okay, that makes sense. No. By the power of the blood of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, I command you to tell me who and what you are. And I guarantee you, well, I don't care what it was, advanced species or not. If they were created by God. And they're going to have to answer or get some yonder. We need your help. Sasquatch may not survive the Anthropocene extinction. So, my next question, my immediate question, so I'm pretty sure that's us. Like life on Earth. What are you talking about? What extinction? When's it supposed to take place? And I mean, like, what day? Since you're like some invisible, intelligent being. Let me get my calendar out. What day are you talking about this extinction is going to take place? And by what means is it going to happen? Again, folks, that's just me. And that's if, I find out it's not some demonic entity. The Zainu, thank you, Deimos Mars. I knew somebody would get it in there. Doesn't it sound familiar? This sounds an awful lot like the guy that talked about the Xenu Sasquatch, or whatever they were. That was Dr. I almost said Dr. Meldrum. Wouldn't it be something if Dr. Jeff Meldrum started talking about the Xenu? That's the second show that we start getting on this alien stuff. And Sweet Luna comes and sits under I got one of those big boy director's chairs, camping chairs. It's built like a director's chair, but it's a little bit wider and more sturdy. It's awesome. I carry it around everywhere I go. It's the most comfortable seat in the world. But it's the second time we've had a show where I'm talking about this stuff, and Sweet Luna comes and sits under the chair and starts staring out the window. Were y'all on that show that one time it happened? Huh. We'll be right back with you after these messages from our sponsor. I'm in the wrong counter for that. Well, we'll be right back after a message from the good old Colonel.
So it seems that Congress is finally going to recognize the little green men in the farm. Now, Ben, he interviewed this old boy named Dogman or some shit like that. I don't know what his name is, and apparently he don't eat. But he came on and said some very salacious and blasphemous things about the Lord Jesus Christ and said the talk and Jesus' gospels did not match up to one another. They preached two different gospels. That right down to tell you how crazy the man is. And he knows how crazy he is, too. He's taking baths in ice water. Folks back in the late 1800s, they had these places called sanitariums. And guess what they did? They made those crazy folks take baths in ice water. And then they shocked the shit out of them. They put electrodes to them and they shocked them, and that shocked them back to normalcy, I guess. I don't know. I think they're just trying to kill them, get rid of them because there's problems with it. But that's neither here nor there. Maybe we need to bring that shock therapy. Maybe that'll help those breeds. I feel bad for him there if he believes half that crazy shit he comes out of his mouth. He's lost in the sauce for real. And I'll tell you who else lost. There else lost in the sauce. That old boy with the big forehead that calls spirits, and he supposedly calls spirits into himself and they can see the future. And he's always on H Daily. What's that news, Nate?
I don't know what you're talking about, Colonel.
Yeah, you do. What we're talking about. And not triple O. It's not him. Dude, they say that. They got a word. They got Occult. Yeah, that's all. But David Wilcox is his name. David Wilcox. He's another son of a bitch who got a belly full of lies. And he's not too bad, though. He's P.T. Barnum. He knows what he's doing. That's just gimmick. I ain't mad at him because he knows he lied, and me do too. And sometimes it's kind of funny. He can say some pretty pertinent stuff. He had to get me on it, though, because they said that the sci-fi people were really worshiping the devil. He said he didn't really. I don't want to worship the devil. They said, well, you better get some yonder. Okay, guess what? He got some yonder.
Huh. Weird. So I let Twink Luna outside because she's also like a Nazi commandant. Like when she senses something that's not right, like she goes directly into protect mode. So I take her out there and she runs. It almost knocks me down to get out there. She runs and she tail straight up in the air. She's going bananas too. I thought she was gonna dig into something. Nothing there. She kind of looks back at me like, what in the hell? She kind of cocks her head. She's like, oh, all right, well, everything's cool, I guess, boss. We know what it was. And we rebuke it fully by the Lord Jesus Christ's blood that now sits on the mercy seat. So, Nathan says he was having nightmares, sleep paralysis, anxiety, afraid of going outside in the dark, afraid of the woods. He must have ran into one of these boogers. That's what it'll do. It'll put fear in you. And we're not supposed to be fearful, because that's the first on that ragtag list of the ones that will have their part in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone. And I don't think that was just done in a non-deliberate way. Oh, he said with Dogman. There you go. My Dogman experience, bro, like I was feeling fear and anxiety before I even saw the creature. And it was akin to like, it was just depression washed over me. And it was a very, very troubling situation. After that, I stopped looking at these things in this just benign type of way, like, oh, well, they exist, let's talk about them. Because the whole thing was nefarious. But suffice it to say, I think what's weirder than that is the second time I talk about aliens in conjunction with these creatures. I mean, like, how can you make that up? I want to listen back to the show to like see the very moment. Listen back to both of them. Because, folks, I've talked to people before that had shows way back in the day when YouTube was a little bit more of the Wild West, so to speak. And it's the same thing. The exact same thing. This weirdness takes place. So I see Nathan, shoot me an email, Nate. I'd love to have you on the show. I doubt you're the Nathan I know, but I have a good brother in the faith that I've met through YouTube and doing interviews and whatnot named Nathan. And I also have a friend that I grew up with named Nate. So apparently you're not either one of them. Well, I'd like to have you on the show. You're a brother in the faith. You need to, we got to start warning our brothers and sisters and even the non-believer, even the Gentile, that this stuff isn't what it seems to be. And you can have this spirituality and just walk about your life with this benign type of faith and nothing in particular. And, it's crazy. YouTube's almost 20 years old. You can have this benign faith and just this nondescript type of deity or a higher power. Even I've heard people say I have faith in a higher power. Well, who is that higher power? Because the gods with the little g are individualistic, just like the one with the big G. God Jehovah or Yahweh or the great I am, whatever you want to call him, because he knows the heart. He knows who you're talking to. But you can't call him Cupid or Apollo or Semiramis or Tammuz and expect him to even listen to you. He wants you to at least know Lord God Almighty. There's only one Lord God Almighty, and it spells it with a capital G. But remember what the Bible said, what you ask my Father in my name, he will give unto thee. So don't get discouraged if you've been praying to God and nothing's being answered. That ain't DDoS, that's the Bible. So these things are all alien in the fact that their origin isn't from the garden. And if it's from the garden, that means they're fallen angels. Last thing I want to show you before I talk about our Bible study. King Solomon had demons, allegedly, that helped build his temple. There was 70 something of them, I do believe. And they were all individuals. They all looked like something. They all were monstrous and grotesque looking. I'm looking at them right now, and I mean, when I say monstrous and grotesque, they all look like, they look like madness. This is madness. See if I can throw this up here for you. Now, a lot of people, myself included, don't believe that 72 demons built a damn thing. Why would God allow Solomon to enlist devils and demons and fallen angels to do what man could do? Now, do I believe that these 72 demons are real? Yes. I just don't believe that Solomon had anything to do with them. What do? They serve the father of what? The father of lies, right? What better way to pull a good old-fashioned flim-flam than to bring in one of the most respected people, one of the most respected kings in all the Bible. So let's see. Can y'all see that? Nope. So see, you'll see these demons right in the middle of your screen. It's all a bunch of madness. This one's got looks like two lambs sticking out of its head for horns, and it's riding a bear. This one looks like, I don't know what that looks like. A goat, maybe? Looks like a monster. This one has the face of some woman, the hind parts of a lion, hands of a man, and angel wings. And this one has its bottom part made out of heads of kings, and its top part is a woman with wings on her arms. And this one is a upright walking unicorn. And this one's a starfish of some kind with legs instead of the star things. There you have a man with a lion's head. Do you remember 2, 3, 4 years ago when people were talking about they were seeing, they called it lion squatch or cheetah squatch or some such nonsense? Now, how much do y'all want to bet? So I've seen it, but I don't want to look at these ugly bastards anymore. How much y'all want to bet that straight up and down, there is one of these demons with the body of some sort of a man, that's man-like, and the head of a wolf, or the head of a dog? How much y'all want to bet? I wouldn't bet against it. So, just like in Egypt, with their demonic fallen angel god, they make things after their own kind, right? There's no doubt in my mind that King Solomon had not only had nothing to do with these demons, except at the end of his life, because he was tempted by satyrs towards the end. He was consulting with satyrs. And a satyr in the Bible is exactly what it seems like it is in all the other folklore that you find it in. And again, folklore and mythology is just not readily accepted history. So, folks, the more I look into it, the more I really look into it with some sort of a discriminant eye, the more you can kind of see, yeah, these things are probably the offspring of fallen angels and some sort of a creature, some sort of a dog or a wolf or something. And who's to say that when they started these things, that they couldn't breed after their own kind? I don't know. I'm not comfortable enough to say that for sure. It's very curious, though, isn't it? Is there any questions or anything? We, by the end of this weekend, will be upgrading the old Frankenstein's monster. And Lord willing, the creek don't rise. I took it to a buddy of mine who's also a born-again believer who owns a computer store here. He said the only thing that is stopping us is the amount of RAM that my computer's running in the editor that I use to make those videos for you. So if anybody would like to contribute towards that end, you know what to do. It's going to be in the chat with you, and it's in the description box below. Every little bit helps. And if you can't, you're still listening, you're still being cool and contributing to the conversation. So all you got to do is hit a thumbs up and share this video. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell, and we'll be in there like swimwear. And thank you ahead of time for all the people who have contributed and who do to the BDRP, and our executive producers. If you'd like to become a member, an executive producer, and get exclusive videos on our members side only, you can do so. That's in the description box as well. And again, with this Miami alien stuff, folks, start asking questions. Start looking into it a little bit deeper. Because, I mean, it is what it is. Like, there's more evidence that it's not aliens in there than it is. But like Donald Klein just said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man. What was it like in the days of Noah? Read the book of Enoch. It'll tell you all about it. And folks, there was all sorts of stuff. I believe the days of Noah is where we get our Greek and Roman mythology from. That's when I believe all these weird creatures, minotaurs and centaurs and the Cerberus and all these weird, strange amalgamations of creatures and monsters. That's where all that took place. That's where you go into Egyptology and you see all these monstrous little g gods that they worship that dwelt among men. These things sat in thrones, and you can see the juxtaposition between them and human beings. And guess what? They were always giants. Just because they were even the offspring, the Gibberines or whatever you want to call them, they were giants. They just happened to be giants. But so were those angels that first came down. I believe the Bible says they were made just a little bit above man. A little higher than men. I wonder if that word higher, when they're made a little bit higher than men, I wonder if that denotes something else. Maybe their height was a little bit more than what we were. And there's a theory that's going around that I kind of subscribe to, and that science kind of opens up that there was more oxygen on planet Earth a long time ago. And where things are more oxygenated, they become bigger, right? So if you believe like I do that Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal, all that stuff was real, but it was all here at the same time, every hominid, every bone that they found that they said this was a real upright walking hominid of some sort, were all on planet Earth at one point in time. And there's northward of like 20 of them. I believe man has always been man. I believe those other ones were of man, but they weren't necessarily us. You see. What does the devil do since he can't create? He can create nothing. He can take nothing and turn it into something. He can't do that. God can. God's the one that said, bara, come into being, that which was not now is. He can take nothing and create something because he's God with the big G. Satan, little g, he can't create a mad jack thing. He twists, distorts, perverts, distorts, but everything he does, just like a used car salesman, he's going to give you quantity over quality because he can't build something from the ground up. He's not a creator. He's creative. That's why you see all these musicians are throwing up the devil's horns and 666 hand signs and all that weird stuff, is because they're paying homage to the one who gave them that creative spirit. Now, I'd like to encourage anybody who's a young musician, especially, you don't have to have some leg up from Satan to become successful. All good blessings come from God. God's the one that gave you that talent. He gave you the means to have that talent. If you get to a certain point, I'm going to tell you what your parents won't. You get to a certain point, you're going to be approached. That's just all there is to it. It's not fairy tales. It's not some stuff that people say on TV. It's real. I've seen it. And believe it or not, I've experienced it. You're going to be approached by old Stitch. And he's going to show you all that you could have. Remember when he took Jesus up on the top of that high mountain? Showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time? He did not take Christ through time. He showed, in my opinion, when he showed Christ a natural progression of these kingdoms, he showed him some sort of an illusion. But Jesus knew it was true. He said, okay, this is a natural progression of these kingdoms. This is the world growing, the kingdoms expanding. You remember what the devil said? I give these to whomsoever I will, because they were delivered unto me. I give them to whomever I want. I can give them to you. I can give them to that boy on Hey Boy Corner. But I'll give them to you. All you got to do is just one time, just once, kneel before me and worship me. Just one time. Remember what Jesus said? Beat it, creep. You shall worship the Lord thy God, and him only shall thou serve. And I imagine the devil said, you know what, you show right, and disappeared and left him to climb off that mountain with 40 days of no food and water. Our Lord and Savior didn't acquiesce or bend to the wiles and whims and the very, very alluring. I mean, the devil wasn't lying in that sense. He was twisting and perverting just like he does. Sure, he would. There's no doubt in my mind he would have delivered all the kingdoms of the world and to Jesus, but it would have been perverted, twisted, and distorted because they didn't come from a source of good. They came from the source of wickedness. And he'll always attach some sort of wickedness to whatever deal he makes, no matter how good it is. Because, you know, this is something we don't really realize. I don't think anybody's even stopped in their own nonsense throughout the entirety of their day to realize. Satan's not against good. He's not against good at all. If he was against good, then why are all these wealthy people, the Jeff Bezoses and the Bill Gates especially, why are they building children's hospitals? They're helping children with these hospitals. They're straight up helping. If they can build these hospitals and do all these good things, then they're not against good, are they? Satan's not against good. He's against God. Never forget that. And have some discernment. Thank y'all. I'm D. Doss, and I'll see you on the next Late Show.